Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for your patience as we figured out some technical difficulties on our end. I'm Michaela White. I'm the training director here at INCM, and I am here with my good friend, Brannon Marshall. Brannon and I worked together years ago at Awana, and he is currently the Director of Global Church Engagement at Awana. And when it comes to talking about discipleship or being a disciple, I have learned the most from my interaction with Brannon. He is an authentic disciple who loves Jesus deeply and loves his church, which makes sense because he was a church planner. And now working at Awana, he is the Director of Global Church Engagement, like I mentioned, and I was wondering if he could share a little bit about what he does there.
Sure. So the title is ominous, as you alluded to. Long story short is I get a lot of joy about introducing the full scope of Awana's ministry to churches in ways that are natural and intuitive to them. So whether that's through Advent devotionals, whether it's through books and resources and training opportunities, really that's the crux of my job, is to help the church become healthy and to serve the church well. So that's what motivates me, and that's what I do.
We're so grateful for Awana. They're a great partner of ours, and we're thankful for them having Brannon give his time to us today. We're going to be diving into the topic of discipleship and being a disciple maker. And so I know there's going to be lots of questions that are going to come up for you throughout this time. So I want to encourage you, as those come up, type them into the chat bar there on the side, and we'll be keeping note of them as we're going through this time together. There's also going to be polls that you'll see coming up on the sidebar as well, so be sure to take note of that. And there's going to be a special surprise at the end, so stay tuned for that. But we're going to dive right in. Brannon, why don't you take it away?
Cool. So I'll share a little bit of my heart as I'm sort of reorienting the screen here. By the way, this thing behind me, it says awesome. It's not meant as a descriptor, but I think it's a really cool piece of artwork, so it just happened to be there. Anyway, I want to kind of kick things off by naming something that I think a lot of people feel. I think a lot of people in ministry are tired, and I think a lot of people feel occasionally overworked, but often misworked. And there's something that we can't quite name, and it's a weird tension. The best way I can kind of describe it is, if you're a musician, it feels like you're playing in a different key sometimes. And sometimes it feels like something's just not connecting, or like something's going against the grain of our souls. There's something very deep that we can't quite name, but we all kind of feel it, or we feel it frequently. And it shows up in some weird ways. It shows up emotionally. I think a lot of people just feel this weightiness about ministry, and it's not the burden that we started with. Now it's turned into almost a soured kind of a weightiness, but we're also tired all the time, and which doesn't make sense, because we go to all these leadership conferences and we read all these leadership books, and we surround ourselves by the right people. We read all the right blogs, but for some reason something's just not connecting. And the heartbreaking part is that we're just not satisfied, that we're really just not fulfilled. And if we were really honest with ourselves, we would look down and say, I'm really just not happy, and I'm not as joyful as I was when I started. I think it's very common, and I think the reason is that we've adopted the wrong metaphor for ministry. If not the wrong metaphor, at least an incomplete metaphor. We've been told that we are leaders, and we are people who take people from point A to point B, and that's good, and that's very necessary, but I think it's incomplete. And I think it's not the real thing that defines who we are. We're a little bit deeper than that. So I want to show you a picture that I think, at first some of you guys might laugh because of the tone of the picture, but I ask you to hold on for a little bit, because the picture evokes some real depth. And I'm just going to frame it this way. The picture is a picture called The Psalmist, or The Psalmist David is what it's called. And so let me pull it up here so you guys can see it. And here's what it looks like. Hopefully you guys can see that. Now, maybe you've seen this before. It's a woodcut. It's very old. I don't know the dates on it or anything like that. But sometimes ministry can be like this. And you're looking at it, you're going, yeah, tell me about it. There's people killing each other, and it's just crazy. It just looks like complete chaos. So I want to just kind of start at the top of this picture and tell you what I'm seeing. I see this angel holding a sword and the balances of justice. I see people off to the right as we kind of move clockwise. I see people being put to the sword, and then you kind of move further down. There's this guy with this exasperated look on his face, and he's holding a scroll in one hand. It's kind of in the dark. I'm going to skip this to the centerpiece of this picture that would be like in the 6 o'clock position. I'm just going to move up maybe to the 9 o'clock position. You see this guy with his hand kind of reaching out of the frame, and again, there's weeping, and there's a weightiness to this picture, and there's this circle around the whole thing. And then in the foreground, in the 6 o'clock position, you see this old man. This old man with a harp or a stringed instrument. And you can't quite see it in this picture, but he has a tear in his eye. And his right hand looks like it's ready to pick up and play the harp. He just doesn't know how to do it. And he can't quite summon whatever strength he needs to string this instrument. I think this is how a lot of us feel. This is David as an old man, a psalm writer, a singer, someone who slayed giants and led sheep, who was the choice out of all his brothers. And here he is, just as a king, later in his life, weeping over the phenomenal weightiness of his people. I wanted to show you that picture because to me, it's a good image for discipleship. Contentedness to rest when everything else is around you is going crazy. If I can have one nugget that I want to give to you guys today, it's who you are in Christ is more important than what you do for Christ. There's this weird thing. We've learned as leaders to measure who we are by what we do in ministry. So, I had a great VBS this summer. Oh, how many kids did you have? Oh, we had, whatever. Oh, well, what are you doing right now? Oh, we're running so many programs on Sunday mornings. And we always retreat to this doing. And those are important, and that's a piece of who we are, but it's not the deepest part of who we are. The discipline that we need to have for ourselves is to rest in who we've been told that we are. Your identity is ascribed to you. It's not something that you muscle for or work for or achieve or study for or anything like that. You are who God says you are, and you are a disciple. You are more than that on top, but more foundationally, you are a disciple. And I am aching to recover that identity for all of us who are listening and for a lot more. Here's where this looks like. I don't need leadership tactics as much as I need sanctification. And I think you're probably in the same boat. I don't need 9 ways to have a better VBS. I need more Jesus, and I need to be closer to God. Because if that happened, if I could actually just dwell and rest and take that posture that David has, if that were me, then all those spiritual gifts that have been put inside of me would awaken just because I am closer to God. Now I could germinate them myself, and I can go in a greenhouse, and I can pour water on it, and I can make those little bulbs of spiritual gifts pop up, and I can fake it for a while. But what really sustains is being close to God and saying, I really need to rest in my identity for who I am. So that's where we're going here in these next 45 minutes. It's a faith thing, because it takes faith to say, if I focus on my identity rather than my activity, then God will bless that. But I really do think that's where God is calling us to go. We have identity issues, not just simple activity issues, not just how to do stuff better. So the psalm that I want to throw out there, and we'll throw a link up here in just a bit. The psalm that I want to throw out there that I think that picture is trying to get at is Psalm 131. It's 3 quick verses. I'm not even going to read it. I'm not going to refer to it once. I just want to commend it to you. And there's the link. So go ahead and click on that link when it shows up in the sidebar on your screen, and you can be there. You can multitask. It's totally fine. Michaela's got a question, and this is your first chance to use that little box over there on the side of your screen. This is your first chance to really kind of interact, and I want this to be really conversational. So with that, we'll spin the screen back over here, and we'll get some discussion going.
Sure. Yeah, I'm curious if you guys could type a word about what your reaction is to that image of discipleship that Brannon just described. Maybe it's refreshing. Maybe it's scary. Maybe it's confusing. But I would love for you to interact and just share that one word, that reaction that you have to what Brannon just shared about that image of discipleship. And obviously, Brannon, this has been a place you've been revolving around. Has there been words for you that have come up as you've been thinking about this image of discipleship?
Yeah, for me, I think it's scary because we don't like to be vulnerable. But when I say, okay, I'm gonna go really deep, I'm gonna get into who I really am, not just what I do. Really, that's scary. It's hard to be alone with yourself, and it's really hard to be alone in a place where you're gonna say, God, I don't know what I'm gonna find there. It's easy to pile on more and more activity, but to me, it's very scary. That's my word for it. And I guess if anybody else is feeling that, let me know if it gets unscary. Where I'm at anyway, it gets scarier and scarier. You just go deeper and deeper. But the cool thing is we know God's there with us. So some of these words that we're seeing that are coming up, I'm just going to read a few and maybe wrap on a couple of them. I'm seeing needed. It's a good one. Layered. That's another good one. More Jesus. Humbling. Heavy. Life right now. That's a great one. This tells me it's kind of hitting a nerve for a lot of us, and it's good because I don't think any of us are going into this lightly. All of these, freeing.
I'm with you, Don. This is so freeing. Absolutely.
I really wish we could. I really wish we could still make our performance reviews and do the work of the ministry while focusing on cultivating who we are for the ministry. And it's a really tough tension we're going to have to walk.
Yeah, absolutely. You're going to be diving into 3 choices that disciples make. Why don't we go there and then we'll come back to discussion.
All right. So I'm going to take the screen back this way. Here we go. Okay. So I think disciples make 3 choices that characterize them and who they are. These are when you make the choice to say, I'm not going to just be a leader. I'm also going to be a disciple. And I'm going to primarily look at my identity and characterize myself as a disciple. There's 3 choices that we make. And the first choice is pace. We choose pace. Disciples choose pace. And what I have in mind there is that we live a life that's marked by quality, a deep steadiness in God. A deep steadiness, and it's a life that's marked by pace. I think, I hear people talk when you say, how you doing? Oh, the common answer is, I'm good. That's the first thing people say. And if we start to tell stories, we measure the quality of our life by the height of our peaks, like where we are, rather than the steadiness of our pace. What's the last mountaintop vista I visited? That's how I'm doing. That's how good I am. And if I can muster enough chutzpah to drag myself out of the valley onto the next path, then I'm a victor. I won. Like that. I think disciples say, I really just want to take a meandering walk and not a lazy walk, not a walk that goes, I'm just content to kind of just blah, blah, blah and through life. But the best kind of walks are the meandering ones where the quality is measured by the effect they have on our souls, not by the ability we have to accumulate numbers toward anything or how fast we get to where we're going. They're really about, okay, at the end of this walk, how do you feel and who are you? Do you like who you are becoming in this walk with Jesus? Because you're supposed to. It's supposed to be very hard, but you're supposed to awaken into more and more who you were designed to be. And pace is a piece of that. Something that God's teaching me that just parts of our souls can't be touched in a hurry. We can touch lots of stuff in a hurry, and we can do lots of stuff, lots of incidental, peripheral stuff, and some of it needs to be done. I hate expense reports, along with the rest of you. But the deepest parts of our souls can't be touched in a hurry. They take time. And you guys are shepherds, and your pastors and your kidmin leaders, and this is the way that you think. You have kids in your church, and so that's your role. You have the opportunity to touch the deep places of the soul, but it can't be done in a hurry. And if we're trying to adopt that same hurriedness in our life, that's naturally going to bleed over into the families and the kids that we want to serve. So that's my first choice that disciple makers and disciples make, is that they lead a life of pace. The second choice is posture. And what I have in mind with posture is a life marked by contentedness. They're just content to delight in God, no matter what the circumstances. It's no secret, right? The world is built around the reality that you're not supposed to feel content. That for some reason, contentedness is not the way things are supposed to go. And so cultivate this posture of discipledness and rootedness in God, rather than cultivate that posture. Most of us work on our perception. So I've got to have a blog. I've got to have a personal URL. I've got to have X number of Twitter followers. I've got to be doing it. Well, we know this. That is just an impossible thing to keep up. Not that those are wrong, but they're not the most foundational part of who we are. I think of Mary and Martha. Martha was doing something that was clearly needed. Somebody needed to do the dishes, right? She's in the kitchen, she's taking care of that stuff, and she's working, and she's waiting for that kind of commendation from Jesus. And then Jesus goes, wait. Mary got it right. For some reason, Mary was able to block off other stuff. And Mary was able to say, okay, there's tons of stuff on the periphery that I'm not going to worry about. I have my Jesus here, and I'm just going to sit and adore him. And that's what I'm going to do. That's that idea of posture. So if you don't have a blog, and if you're serving in a small church, here's my nugget for you. We are called to be faithful, not famous. God never called anybody to say, if you're going to be effective, you need to be famous. He never said that. What he said is, I really want you to be faithful. I want you to just follow me. And if you keep it that long enough, you're gonna be who you need to become. And then all of the doing stuff is going to flow out of that posture of who you are. So that's that second choice. We have pace, posture, and because there's 3 points, they all have to start with P. The last one is presence. Presence, a life marked by rootedness and embeddedness in a community. I think one of the hardest things for a leader or a pastor to be is to be present with his or her flock in body and in spirit and in mind. Because we're filled by things that would convince us that we're better off somewhere else. And you guys know this, right? Like when things get uncomfortable, you could contact somebody and they will airlift you out of your current ministry situation and plop you down into a place that we perceive as better and more in line with your potential. But this idea of presence is really an overlooked discipline, and it's overlooked choice. To choose a very uncomfortable present over an unknown future. I'm okay with that. Like, yeah, things are going to get uncomfortable in my small. Things aren't the way they are, and I don't get along with this pastor, or man, this mom and dad are just giving me fits. Part of what it means to be sanctified is to go through all of that stuff and to learn how God will carry you through all that stuff, rather than just to weigh by our potential. So this idea of presence, I want to tell a quick story real quick. A mentor of mine that I'm fairly sure that nobody here would know, and if you do know him, please call me because we can share some stories. His name is Rob, and Rob is a pastor in Nebraska. And like a lot of pastors in Nebraska, he's in a rural town. He started pastoring when he was 21, and now he's 73, I think. And he has spent his whole life serving small churches in out-of-the-way places in Kansas and in Nebraska. He's never written a book, never had a blog. I don't even think he probably knows what Twitter or even Facebook is. But he's spent his whole life being present with his people. And he's probably gonna disappear and won't be written about the leadership thing. But he has just been present with his flock or flocks for decades. That is a missing thing, and it's a rare thing. I think we had an old question. The old question was, are you competent enough to lead me? Are you competent enough to lead me? And if the answer is no, you've got to go read books, you've got to go to seminars, you've got to go to school, you've got to become competent enough to lead me. But I don't think that's the question that churches will ask going forward, and I don't think that's what our souls really crave. I think the new question is, are you present enough to know me? Can you really sit across from me at a table and turn off all the other stuff and be distraction free and be present enough to know me? Not just competent enough to lead me, because that'll come. You're gifted as a leader, you're gifted as a shepherd, but more foundationally, are you present enough to lead me? So I want to do a quick poll. Here's these 3 ideas again. Pace, presence. Pace, posture, and presence. So I want to do a quick poll. When you hear those 3 ideas, which of those choices, or which choice stirs you the most? You say, oh, I life of pace. I need to lead a life that's just better posture. I just need to sit and enjoy Jesus more rather than focusing on all the activity. Or I need to lead a life that is present. To lead a life that just shows up where it's supposed to show up. So pace, posture, and presence. I'm going to turn it over to Michaela here while you guys are answering those questions. Go ahead and fill out that poll off to the right. I'm going to ask Michaela, since you asked me the first question, I'm going to ask you this one. So when you hear one of those 3, pace, posture, or presence, which one of those stirs you or awakens you the most?
Before I answer, I just want to make sure everyone knows how to get to the poll. You're going to see on the top of the bar on the right, polls. Click on that and you'll be able to see it there on the side. I think one of the things that struck me as you were talking was on posture and that image of Mary and Martha, because one of the things that really struck me in my Bible reading lately was when Lazarus died and Jesus came back to Mary and Martha's house. Martha was the one who ran out to meet Jesus.
Yeah.
And Mary was the one who stayed in the house. And I just remember thinking, she got it.
Yeah.
She got it. And she was at such a low point, but it was there's so much redemption in that even if your natural bent is to do and to work, in some of our deepest moments, that's when we respond. And so if, and I've been there too, being completely vulnerable, those really hard moments are oftentimes I end up running to Jesus. Yeah. And I wish I could be more of the Mary and just sit naturally. And so that's a discipline for me. I have to work really hard at that. But so I would say posture definitely was the one that struck me.
Let's translate that into real life ministry, right? If all we did was just sit and contemplate Jesus, right? Like our families would starve because there's a certain level of which, like, well, we can't all just go retreat and be monks, like we are called to do things. So I want to, for those of you right now that are going, wait a minute, are you saying I could just sit in my office and just think of, obviously not, right? Like we are made to do, right? God has works that he's prepared in advance for us to do. Absolutely. It's if we're doing out of a forced muscling, that's one thing. But if we're doing out of an overflow of who we are, that's the best word for it, is overflow. Then that's how God gets the glory. And I think that's how we find satisfaction.
Yeah, absolutely. It looks like posture and presence are exactly neck and neck.
Yeah. Well, fortunate, because I was hoping to have like one just take it away. We can rap about that for a minute. But yeah, so posture and presence are kind of neck and neck right now. So that's kind of a cool thing. We'll keep the poll running just for a little bit, but I think the reason these things are so hard for us, at least for me, is it really comes back to balance. So I could be good at being, I could be good at doing, but making the two talk to each other is really tough for me. I'm the type that when I want to retreat, I'm out. Like I go away where I have no cell signal, so I can just be, and it's just Brannon and Jesus for a while. We recalibrate, recenter.
Teach me your ways.
Yeah, that's just, I'm out. And then when I'm in, it's like there are days where it's just like I'm head down productive and I don't want to talk to anybody. Well, the reality is both extremes have a weakness to it, and I really value the leaders that, the ones that I want to become like, are the people that can balance the two of them. So I'm going to take a quick look at the poll real quick here. There we go. Yeah, and they're still dead even. Cool. So I'm going to respond to one thing here in the chat that I think is really good. Michelle mentioned presence. We are so busy. I can read. We are so often so busy doing with kids and doing activities, and spend so little time really talking with the kids. I really love that sentiment, and I think you're really glancing on something that's important there. That little word "with," talking with kids, like the difference, right? When you're trying to get a room of 8 or 800 kids to be quiet, like that's you're doing the work of ministry. totally a different way of being present when you're like eyeball to eyeball with that little kid. Yeah, being present is tough. For me, it's confession time for that. If you're present, if that's your word. I'm going to sound like a Luddite, and I'm going to sound horrible here, but like for me, it's my phone. You know, and I had a friend that called me on this, pun intended, that called me on this week. Whenever I get a little bored, I'm like, okay, let's see what's happening in the Twitter sphere and what's going on. All it is I'm just bored, and not that that's bad, but like, what about this relationship? What about this person right across the table? And he even, this really good friend who said that, he says, you know, you're probably fine. There's nothing malicious underneath there, but I just want to let you know you do it. And I'm like, wow, thank you. Because it's very hard to give people the gift of our undivided attention these days.
Good friend.
Yeah, absolutely. Truth tellers, right? So, all right. So now I want to get really kind of into the practical piece. All this has kind of been a little heady up to this point, but I think we do need to get a little practical. So I've got just four words, 4 practices to recover our identity. If you're somebody that says, yes, I want to be known as a disciple, and I need to pursue that path, that is my identity, and I'm going for it. I have 4 practices for you. They're just 4 simple words. So the first one that I want to give you, this one, if you've been around recently, there's a lot of push toward this, and it's something I'm thankful for. And here's the word: slow. Slow. I remember being in a Bible study once with a guy named Jeff, and he was leading the Bible study. I was probably 22, maybe, and Jeff was this guy that you could tell when he started teaching, you're like, this guy not only loves the Bible, but he loves the God of the Bible. And when he would teach this Bible study, it was clear to me that he read the Bible slower than anybody else I ever read. I don't mean in pace of slowness, like he's reading things slow. I don't mean that. But he would savor it, and like he would read Psalms in his brain or in his quiet time before he would prep. He would slow down and he would just go, okay, the Lord is my shepherd. Wait, Lord, okay, is my shepherd. You know, and I never saw him do it. It's the weird thing, but he just exuded that kind of slowness, you know, in a really good way. And what it did, I think, slow and fast is contagious, right? If you want to run a fast life, people are going to join you there. But if you want to run a slow life, people will find that, and they'll actually be really relieved just to be around you. And what is with that guy, or what's with that lady? She's just so slow in her pace. Yes, there's some negative stuff to that. You know, say no to stuff. That's good. Stop doing things. You've all heard that advice. But it's not enough just to be negative. I think we also have to recover these ideas of Sabbath and just reading Scripture slowly and praying slowly. There's no hurry. If there's nothing more important than cultivating the posture of a disciple, then why are we in such a hurry to get on to the next thing? So that's the first word, slow. The second word is focus. The second practice to recover our identity is focus. And again, this one's got negative and positive to it too. So focus, I would say unplug or shut down. That'd be the negative thing. Obviously, digital's not evil. Our phones are not evil. That's not the problem. But I think what we have is we have a culture that has a widened periphery, and so we have more stuff, and we're kind of doing this. Focus is saying, nope, I'm gonna not look at the periphery, and I'm only gonna be concerned about what is right here. So if that's you, if you need focus, write it down. You know, write down the name of the child that you are praying for that morning. Just take the time to focus and write it down. Take the initiative to know people. That takes focus. It says, especially if you're an introverted type person, or if you're not the gregarious personality. Maybe it is harder for you if you are a gregarious person. But to take the initiative to say, I'm really going to know you, so I'm going to listen. I'm gonna ask questions. This kind of spills over into this third practice I think the healthy disciples have. This is the social social dynamic of it is connecting. You've heard the statistics, and I don't know where the article is that has the statistics, but we have fewer friends than our parents did, and way fewer friends than our grandparents did when they were our age, no matter what age you are. Friendships are dwindling, and we don't have these nourishing friendships like we used to in our culture. So connect. This walk of discipleship is funny, because I used to think when I was a lot younger that discipleship meant that there was a group of us in our 20s or whatever, and we'd sit around the table with this dude who was in his 60s, and he would pour into us, and this would be the model of discipleship, because that kind of seems right to me for some weird reason. I don't know why. But discipleship is a withness idea. Yes, you've got somebody in their 60s, in their 50s, in their 40s, in their 30s, in their 20s, and in their teens. And there's a connection there, and you're all walking this journey together. Yes, there's people ahead of you, and there's people behind you, but there also has to be people with you. Obviously, we could rap about how Facebook has changed the name of friend. Well, come on, church, let's get it back. Like let's say I'm going to get to know people. What if the church led the way in knowing people? And people would say nobody knows me like my church. So slow, focus, connect, and here's the last one: play. And I think it's kind of a goofy word, but here's what I have in mind. There's a childlikeness to discipleship that leaders only don't get. And I'm not talking about just spreadsheets and conference rooms. Like, we need to play. We need to recreate. And we need to recover this childlike wonder about Jesus, Here's a quick question for you. When was the last time, you can really remember just standing back and wondering about Jesus and wondering at Jesus and just saying, man, I am so thankful to be there. And what was it like when Jesus held that child on his lap? And what was it like when Peter started to fall through the sea? And what was it like when David, saw Goliath fall over? What was that like? We need to let our minds kind of get a little unfettered. And I'm not just talking about detachment or some weird ADD thing. I really do mean playing inside of our spirituality. That's an okay thing to do, to bring imagination into this place. So slow, focus, connect, and play. We're gonna have another poll coming up in a little bit, right?
Yes. The question is going to be, which one practice are you eager to start? And so that's going to show up again if you go to the top bar in the polls on the side there. And if you could respond to that, that would be wonderful. And I'm curious, Brannon, which one are you eager to start or have been working on this week?
Yeah. So you're catching me in a really good time, because I just came back from 2.5 weeks of vacation.
Nice.
So I feel really slow right now, and that's really good. For me, my vacation was centering, and that was what I needed. I need a couple of days to dive in before I'm really kind of disconnected. But so slow for me is good. I'm a yes man, which means that I really like to please people. I have a hard time saying no to people, and so when people say, "Yeah," anybody else? Quick show of hands. Oh wait, we got you. We're all probably in that boat. We're all probably at some level people pleasers, and so when people ask us something, we say, "Yes, I'll totally do that. Yes, I'll drive your whatever across the country. Yes, I'll watch your kid for 15 minutes while you guys go out to do it. Or, yeah, I'll totally do that." Because what's underneath that is we are shepherds, and we feel this motivation to care and tend for our people. But the hard reality is that doesn't help us slow down. That just means we've somehow found a way to cram more stuff into a smaller space that we feel a soul level connection with. So let's hop over to the poll really quick and see how the answers are coming in. Hey, they're even split.
That's amazing.
So yeah, they're actually pretty well spread out. Slow and focus are a little bit ahead, so that's good. Slow, focus, connect, and play. They're all showing up there pretty evenly, which just tells me that we've probably got some work to do as a culture.
Yeah, that's good.
That's good.
Hey guys, I want to just remind you, if any questions have come up for you as Brandon's been talking, or any questions you've had about discipleship really lately, please share them in the poll. We're going to enter into a time of Q&A where Brandon's just going to respond to what you guys are curious about. And so while you guys are typing in your questions, I wanted to share the practice that my husband and I have been working on, has been that idea of play. And we realized, because we have a almost 2-year-old, that we thought we had a good walk on wonder, but until we had him in our lives, we realized, man, we have so much to relearn about this. An example would be the other day I was taking him to the park. My son's name is Declan. And he is in this stage where he would like to walk alongside the stroller to the park. And so the walk goes much slower because he stops and he picks up the things along the way. And he found a pine cone, and he's holding it and looking at it, inspecting it, and we're just standing there. And I realize he is not going to move. So I force him forward, or I can get down on the sidewalk and look at a pine cone. And so I decided to sit there on the sidewalk with him because he had since sat down, and picked up the pine cone and just looked at him. And I tried to look at his eyes and his face and try to grasp what was so fascinating. And I just think he sees things so differently. And he's teaching us a lot. And as strange as it sounds, my 2-year-old is teaching me about an aspect of discipleship, of admiring our God and his creation, and he just sees it so differently. So that's been tremendous for our family.
I'm going to go way out, because you reminded me of one of my favorite quotes by G.K. Chesterton, who's just awesome. If you've not read Orthodoxy by Chesterton, just pick it up. It's old and it's so good. He has this thing in there where he says something like that, where he says, hopefully I don't butcher this. He says, it may not be automatic necessity that all daisies look alike. It may be that God makes every daisy separately, but has never gotten tired of making them. And then he says, for we have sinned and grown old, and our Father is younger than we. Point being, my kids teach me the same thing. My kids are into Legos. Okay, so I got 3 kids. Joseph is 9. Karsten just turned 8. My 2 boys, and then our baby girl Hannah is 5. And because she's the youngest and she's the only girl, we're all into Legos. This is what we do. So a couple Saturdays ago, we decided we're going to take all the Legos downstairs in the basement. We're going to put them all out on the floor, and we're going to see how long this takes. We're just going to build stuff, all 5 of us. So my wife and I were down there on the floor with the kids, this big pile of Legos. We were down there for 6 hours, and we missed lunch. Like, we're almost irresponsible parents, feeling like, oh man, we're trying to watch this and nothing. But we were down there for 6 hours, and so I built a spaceship, of course. I built a spaceship because that's cool. Joseph built a gumball machine. Hannah built a car. We're all building different things. And this idea of wonder just kind of, honestly, it's funny because it kind of spilled over into these other things. We're so focused for 8 hours, and we're so connected with each other. I mean, it's the whole world had slowed down. So somebody was asking about the book and or the title and the author for that quote. The book is called Orthodoxy, and it's by a guy named G.K. Chesterton. And I'm going to tell you, it's not something you're going to be able to read in little snippets. It's pretty deep water, but oh my goodness, is it rich. It's in my top 10 all-time books. You got to read it. The book's name is Orthodoxy, and the author is G.K. Chesterton, whose full name was Gilbert Keith, so he went by G.K., as most of us probably would.
I love what Melinda just said. She said, I think all of the practices are found in children. So like Jesus said, we need to become like children. Absolutely.
See, this is Kidman. We got that.
Yeah,
Nailed it.
It's one of the reasons why we love serving in children's ministry. We are so often the ones who are learning the most from them. I have a question about discipleship for you. What do you think is at stake if we do not think about discipleship differently for this generation of kids?
Yeah, that's immeasurable. So I'll speak about first for us, and then the ripple effect for that. If we don't recover our identity as disciples, it will happen. What we'll see is this will happen in stages. First, we'll become cynical, and we'll start to doubt the goodness of people around us. We'll start to doubt the goodness of God in our lives. We'll become cynical. Then we'll become calculating, because we'll start to say, okay, well, if I have to just survive, what's the minimum viable ministry I can do? And we'll become very calculating, and we'll only entertain opportunities that we can measure ourselves. And then we'll eventually, and we'll just kind of become lifeless. We'll become very alone, and essentially, over time, we'll become godless. I don't think that's an overstatement. I think the reason that Jesus called disciples, some of whom were leaders, the reason that they were called disciples primarily, and his words to them were, "Follow me," is because that's the way we are hardwired to respond as Christians. That's a faith thing, where he says, "Follow me into this unknown of who you are, and I'm going to totally reassign your identity, Peter. You thought you were a fisherman. Like, here's what it is." So it is really, in my mind, it is the core issue that we have to wrestle with, is who are we in Christ, and let everything spill out of that. So the second part of that question, though, that you asked is what's at stake for like generations to come and our kids. The best thing I can have as a parent is a vibrant walk with Jesus, and if I don't have that, my kids are not going to learn that. You've heard the talk that it's a horrible tragedy to outsource the spiritual development of children to the church. That's only going to be around, I think, for another 5 or 10 years, because unless we as the church can start to take our identity seriously, there's not going to be anybody there either to outsource identity to. We're going to be an identity-less group of people who are doing church really well, and we're going to have the greatest thing that is just interesting and not compelling. And I don't want my kids to be interested in Jesus. I want them to be compelled by Jesus. And I don't want anybody around me in my neighborhood to go, "Oh, interesting, you mow your lawn differently," or you don't swear when you hit your head with a hammer or whatever. Like, well, of course. But I'm after, I think what Jesus is after is transformation, not just interest. So I think there's a lot at stake if we don't recover this identity as disciples and disciple makers, because that's really who we are and what we ought to be about. And sorry, I'm sermon approaching. You guys are shepherds. You get that. Nobody else has that opportunity. Bankers don't know people's names until they pull up the information. Like the guy at Starbucks just knows your name once he gives you your drink at the end of the counter. You know kids' names. You know what God's doing in their souls. That's why Spurgeon said, if God's called you to be a king, like there's nothing else for us. It is the best thing to possibly do. If you're in that role, it's the greatest. So all that to say, like, I want that to be an encouragement to you. Like, this is your business. All the stuff that we've talked about, the good news is this is your business. I don't care if your job title says, children's ministry director or Sunday school administrator, or just I'm a volunteer named Betty who shows up. Great. You're a disciple and you're a disciple maker. So.
Amen. Well, we're going to move into closing this up. I wanted to just say again a thank you to Awana for their partnership and for giving Brannon's time to us today. And you didn't ask for this, but I was curious, what are a couple things that you guys at Awana are just really excited about in the next year?
Yeah. All right, I'll give you two. So one, phenomenal things are happening outside the U.S. Inside the U.S. with Awana for sure, but things are happening outside of the U.S. that are blowing our minds. For example, more kids outside the U.S. use Awana than inside. That's how big it's gotten. Awana is being used by pastors who oversee a town where there's a brothel and there's these kids that need Jesus, and Awana is there, and so. And there, all kinds of stories I could keep going on. If that idea, or if your churches use Awana, or a church that uses Awana, or whatever your contact with Awana is, if that idea excites you and you go, "Oh, I never knew that," let that excitement spill over into a prayer for us, please, because there's opportunities that are coming in faster than we know what to do with. And we have phenomenal field staff internationally and in the U.S. They've all been here for the last week in the Chicagoland area. And our international area directors, the guys that oversee that type of ministry, they're here still and just praying, God, show us, what are we doing? Where do we go? How do we respond? So that's the first thing. Ask for your prayers. The second thing we've got coming out is a product called Mozo. It's really going to be cool. Mozo is Italian for hub, and the idea is what we really wanted it to be was there's a lot of people that run Awana in their church or are looking for something like, how do I give my leaders tidbits? How do I keep track of all this stuff that happens inside of Awana? And I need something that's just like a central collecting place and a central place where I can derive value. And that's what this product is. So that's launching this coming ministry year, and we just need prayer for that. We've never done this before, so we're really trying to step up our game in the U.S. as well as internationally, and we just need prayer for that. So if that's something that you would want to do for us, we'd be very, very grateful.
Absolutely. Thanks for sharing that. I mentioned at the beginning that we have a surprise for you. We are doing an event in October in Riverside, California called CM Leaders, and we are going to dive deep into the subject of discipleship at CM Leaders, what it is, defining it, because it's a word we throw around and it gets a little muddy, what it means to be a disciple maker, and what it looks like in our ministries. Beth Guckenberger is going to be there, Brannon is going to be there, Naomi Kramer Overton, Melissa J. McDonald, Matt Guevara, our wonderful executive director here at INCM. And if this is touching on something for you, if discipleship and really getting at what it could look like in your ministry, if you feel like something needs to be different, I really want to encourage you to come to CM Leaders and join that conversation. I'm going to show my hand here as the training director at INCM. Don't tell anyone here I said this, but I think CM Leaders is quite possibly the most important event we could do. I think the conversation is needed at this time in children's ministry, and I think the leaders who come, it is going to start something. And so I really want to invite you to be a part of it. And so we're going to give you a discount code to use to get an even more dramatic discount off of the early bird rate. You're going to use the code Brannon, Brannon.
I'm a code!
Not Brandon. Or Brannon, it's Brannon, and it will give you $10 off registration rate. So I really want to encourage you to check it out, cmleaders.com. And if you're really struggling to get there, send us an email and we'll work with you. But we really want to see you at CM Leaders if this is something that God's been stirring in you. So thank you, Brannon, for your time today and for sharing your heart and how God's been working in you about discipleship. Thank you for taking time out of your day to sit with us and be a part of this conversation. You are our heroes, and we love you, and we pray for you and ask for God's blessing over all you're doing to serve kids and families. And we will look forward to the next time we get to sit across from each other. Thanks, guys.